Our oceans have existed for almost 4 billion years. Yet we've only been able to explore beneath them since the 1940s. Most of what's down there remains a complete mystery. Until now. History frozen on the ocean floor. Ships, planes and tanks untouched since the moment they sank. Incredible structures hidden beneath the surface. Some carved by nature. Some placed by humans. And some, honestly, we're not sure who made them. But strangest of all, the creatures. So alien and bizarre, you'll genuinely find it hard to believe they're real. These are the secrets of the underwater world, ready to be revealed. Off the southern tip of Mexico's Baja Peninsula sits a reef unlike almost any other. Cabo Pulmo has been protected since 1995, and the ocean here has not forgotten. Big-eyed trevally gather here in numbers that seem impossible. Tens of thousands of them, moving not as individuals, but as something else entirely. The school tightens, folds inward and begins to spin, each fish reading the one beside it, reacting in fractions of a second until the whole mass becomes a living, turning cylinder of silver. It's one of the most incredible sights in the ocean, and here, it happens on almost any given dive. Why they do this is not entirely understood. Predator confusion, perhaps. Or maybe something more social. It is a phenomenon that plays out again and again in these waters, because Cabo Pulmo is not just home to one species that moves this way, it is home to many. Each year, the mobula rays arrive. Hundreds of them, sometimes thousands. From above, the ocean has changed colour. A mass of rays so dense it reads as shadow. A dark, shifting stain moving just beneath the surface. Mobulas are filter feeders, here for the same plankton-rich waters that drive so much life in the Sea of Cortez. But their sheer numbers do something to them. Individually, a ray is graceful. Together they become something ungovernable. They begin to leap, not all at once, but one after another in a rolling cascade across the surface, each one twisting, spinning, crashing back, again and again. Then the sun goes down. The rays don't rest, they accelerate. Hundreds of them rocketing through black water, banking, wheeling, reversing direction, all around the divers. The dive lights catch the white of their undersides, brilliant flashes of white against absolute black. There and gone, from every direction at once. Moving with a precision that has no right to exist at this speed. It looks less like animal behaviour and more like a choreographed display. The coordination required would humble a military drill team. Something emerges from the blue of the Red Sea. A shape, too large, too angular to be natural. As the water clears, it becomes a hull, then a deck, then a vessel. 128 meters of it sitting upright on the seabed as if it simply never left. The deck is encrusted with decades of coral. Fish pour through the railings in clouds. Life has colonized every surface, slowly, quietly, consuming everything in its path. But descend below deck, and the sea hasn't reached everything. The cargo holds are still full. Motorbikes stacked in rows, trucks, rifles, Wellington boots still in pairs, railway locomotives. Every single thing on this ship was loaded with a destination in mind, but none of it ever arrived. At the stern, a machine gun turret, still pointing skyward. This was the SS Thistlegorm, a British merchant vessel carrying war supplies to Allied forces in North Africa. On the night of the 6th of October 1941, a German bomber found its mark. 2 direct hits to the rear cargo hold. The ammunition on board detonated. It sank in minutes. Every year, thousands of divers make the descent into the Red Sea for one reason: to swim through a moment in history that the ocean sealed shut in 1941 and never reopened. In a narrow channel in Indonesia, the rules of the ocean no longer apply. Lembeh Strait is a narrow channel of black volcanic sand and broken reef. Unremarkable to look at and home to the most bizarre collection of creatures on the planet. The thing that unites almost all of them is simple. Nothing here is what it appears to be. Take the stargazer. Buried to its eyes in the sand, completely motionless, it is invisible. It does not chase. It does not stalk. It simply waits, tongue extended just above the surface as a lure. And when something passes close enough, the sand explodes. The bobbit worm operates on the same principle taken further. It can reach 2 meters in length and spends its life buried in the seafloor with only its jaws above the surface. A fish passes. The jaws snap and miss. The worm resets. Invisible again. This time the strike lands. What it catches, it drags straight down into the sand, and the water stills as if nothing happened. This reef looks empty, just regular coral. But look a little closer. Tucked against a single sea fan, less than 2 centimeters long, is an animal that has spent its entire evolutionary history making sure it stays hidden. The pygmy seahorse doesn't just resemble its host coral, it is indistinguishable from it, down to the individual polyp. Scientists didn't know it existed until one turned up in a laboratory, already attached to a piece of coral someone had collected without noticing. Then there are the incredible cuttlefish. At first glance, the broad-club cuttlefish appears to be malfunctioning. Waves of colour, electric, rhythmic, hypnotic, pulse across his body in continuous sequence. Divers stop, cameras roll, everyone watches. That is exactly what the fish around it do too. They watch, transfixed, as the light show plays out across the cuttlefish's skin. And then, from beneath the display, 2 feeding tentacles fire out faster than the eye can follow. The fish never saw it coming. It was too busy watching the show. The flamboyant cuttlefish pulses with the same restless colour, yellows, purples, deep reds shifting across its skin as it walks along the seafloor on its arms. But unlike the broad club, it is not trying to deceive. Those colours are a declaration. The flamboyant cuttlefish is laced with an extremely potent poison. The most harmless looking creature in Lemba Strait is also one of its most dangerous. And then there is the mimic octopus. Most animals in Lemba have one disguise. The mimic octopus has many. It curls its arms inward, turns green, a sea slug, soft and harmless. Then it flattens out, a flounder gliding across the sand. And then the jellyfish. Arms spread wide, it drifts upward through the water, tentacles trailing. It is, for any predator watching, completely untouchable. It does not just change color, it changes shape, behavior, and movement. It is not hiding, it is lying, and it's very, very good at it. From above, it appears as a single dark eye staring up from the jungle floor, perfectly circular, perfectly still. The Maya called places like these entrances to Xibalba, the underworld. They built their cities around them, made offerings to them, and feared them. It is not difficult to understand why. Just below the surface, a few shafts of light press through from above. Thin, cathedral beams cutting through the darkness. The cave swallows you. Chambers so large that torchlight doesn't reach the walls. Formations that were already ancient when the Maya were alive, built one drop at a time, over hundreds of thousands of years. And then, fixed to the cave wall in the darkness, a stop sign. Someone thought it belonged here. They were probably right. An hour's drive south, another hole in the jungle floor. Cenote Angelita. 30 meters down, the water turns to cloud, a thick, impenetrable fog sitting at the bottom of the cenote. Below that hydrogen sulfide cloud, dead trees rise from the lakebed, preserved and motionless. An entire forest floor sealed off from the world above by a river of fog. Divers descend toward it, slow, and disappear, swallowed whole. For a moment, nothing. An uneasy wait. Then a shape rises back through it. A diver re-emerges, ascending out of the fog like something returning from the other side. The Maya were not wrong about this place. Jellyfish have been drifting through the world's oceans for over 500 million years. No brain, no heart, no bones. And yet, somehow, they have outlasted almost everything that has ever lived on this planet. The comb jellyfish does not sting. It does something considerably stranger. As it moves through the water, its body breaks light into a continuous rolling rainbow, shifting, cycling, alive with color. An animal that produces no light of its own and yet somehow glows like nothing else in the ocean. Then there is the fried egg jellyfish, which looks, without any exaggeration, exactly like a fried egg. A white bell, a yellow dome at the center, drifting through the Mediterranean as if it has somewhere to be, which it absolutely does not. The immortal jellyfish is less than 5 millimeters across, easy to miss. But when it is stressed or injured or old, it does something no other animal on Earth is known to do. It reverts entirely to its juvenile state and begins again. It ages backwards and starts over. How many times it can do this is unknown. There may not be a limit. Off the northern coast of Norway, the Barents Sea is cold enough to kill a person in minutes. Most creatures that end up in it unprotected do not last long. And yet, people come here deliberately, willingly, and they leave their breathing equipment on the shore. Freediving is the practice of descending on a single breath. No tank, no regulator, nothing between the diver and the water. Elite practitioners can hold their breath for over 20 minutes. And in the Barents Sea, this is what you are rewarded with. Kelp growing up to 5 meters tall, swaying slowly in the current. Light breaking through the canopy in long, fractured shafts, turning the water gold, green, and blue all at once. A living stained glass window just below the surface of the Arctic Ocean. Worth every second of the cold. From below, it blocks out the light. A tiger shark. 300 kilograms, 4 meters long. One of the most effective killing machines evolution has ever produced. Circling the divers in long, slow arcs, tightening its radius with each pass. It is not leaving. Then it stops circling. This is the moment. It levels out and heads straight in. The diver does not move back. One hand placed firmly on the tip of the shark's nose, and the hungry apex predator rolls upward and away, gliding over him before dissolving back into the blue. This is Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. It's one of the few places on Earth where tiger sharks gather like this, in numbers, in water clear enough to see everything. Hammerheads thread between them. More tigers circle at the edge of visibility. And for a few moments, you are inside their world. Divers come from across the world for it, a truly humbling underwater experience. In certain corners of the ocean, the water glows. Disturb it, and it lights up. A wave breaks on the shore and pulses electric blue as it rolls in. A boat cuts through the dark and leaves a trail of cold fire behind it. The cause is microscopic. Billions of single-celled organisms, each one producing a flash of light when agitated. Individually, invisible. Together they turn the ocean into something from another world. And they do not go unnoticed. Out in the open ocean, a shaft of light drops from a boat into the black water below, and rising slowly up through it, a majestic whale shark. The biggest fish on Earth, drawn to the surface by the same plankton that makes the water glow. It tilts almost vertical, opens its mouth, wide enough to swallow a person whole, and feeds. Working the light, patient and enormous, while the darkness holds everything else at bay. Whale sharks are filter feeders. No teeth, no threat. The most massive fish on the planet and entirely harmless to anything too large to be plankton. Along its back, a constellation of white spots, unique to every individual, like a fingerprint. No two are the same. In the dark, lit up by the boat above, they catch the light and hold it. Vast, spotted, and completely unbothered. In Iceland, the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates meet. Or rather, they part, pulling away from each other at about 2 centimeters a year, opening a crack in the earth that runs across the country and straight through the floor of a glacial lake. That crack is Silfra, and you can dive in it. The water here is glacial meltwater, filtered through lava rock for decades before it reaches the fissure. By the time it arrives, it is so pure that visibility exceeds 100 meters in every direction. There is no sediment, no particulate, nothing between the eye and whatever lies ahead. It is, by most measures, the clearest diving water on Earth. The walls of the fissure glow, colour caught in ancient rock, lit by pale Arctic light. The gap between the plates narrows in places to barely a body's width. In others, it opens into vast cathedral chambers. And for a moment, suspended in clear water between two continents, you can reach out and touch both at once. Across the world's oceans, humans have been placing things on the seafloor. Sculptures, statues, installations, submerged deliberately and then left to whatever comes next. In Bora Bora, statues rest on a shallow sandy floor in water so blue it barely looks real. They sit there quietly, the sand undisturbed around them, the light playing across them from above. Beautiful and still largely untouched. But leave it long enough and the ocean makes its move. At Gili Meno in Indonesia, an underwater sculpture garden was designed with exactly this in mind, a place for life to take hold. The statues are still there, but so is everything else. Fish move through them in clouds. Coral has taken hold. What was built as art has become a reef. And in Curacao, a statue of Neptune stands on the seafloor, or what remains of him. The coral that covers the surrounding reef now grows from his shoulders, his arms, his outstretched hands. It erupts from his head in vivid fans and branches as if the ocean has crowned him. He was placed here as a monument to the sea. Now he belongs to it. The blue whale is the largest animal ever to have lived on Earth. Larger than any dinosaur. Larger than anything that has walked, swum, or flown through the history of this planet. It has a heart the size of a small car, a tongue that weighs as much as an elephant. And still, it doesn't feel real. Seen here alongside a pod of dolphins, the scale finally lands. Specks keeping pace with something that barely seems to be trying. For most of the 20th century, this animal was being hunted to nothing. At the peak of commercial whaling, blue whales were being killed faster than they could reproduce. By the mid-1960s, there may have been as few as a couple of thousand left in the entire ocean. But the hunting stopped, and slowly, extraordinarily slowly, in the way that only the largest animals can, they began to bounce back. This calf was born into a recovering ocean. At birth, already 8 meters long and weighing as much as a large SUV. Gaining 90 kilograms, the weight of an adult human, every single day on its mother's milk. That it exists at all is not a given. It is a second chance. Off the coast of Indonesia, where the Indian and Pacific Oceans meet, the reef at Komodo is a riot of colour and shape. Fans the size of doorways. Staghorns branching in every direction. Soft corals in purples and oranges that seem to pulse with the current. What looks like rock or plant is neither. Each structure built by living animals, constructing one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth, one microscopic layer at a time. And living in every crack and crevice of it, the peacock mantis shrimp. Barely the length of a hand, it peers out from its hole in the coral with eyes that can detect 16 types of colour. Humans can only manage 3. It carries a pair of clubs that strike with the speed and force of a bullet, capable of shattering glass. The eggs it carries are tended with a care that seems at odds with everything else about it. An extraordinary animal, hiding in plain sight. The crinoid looks like part of the reef, feathery, still decorative. Until it moves. Then it unfurls and swims, a strange spiraling motion that feels almost wrong to watch. And they are not the only ones. The Spanish dancer gets its name from the way it moves, a large, vivid red sea slug that, when it swims, unfurls into something resembling a flamenco skirt in full motion. Rippling, rotating, completely improbable. An animal that spends most of its life crawling along the reef floor and occasionally decides to do this instead. And above all of it, the giant manta rays. Gliding over the reef in long, unhurried arcs, wingspans stretching to 7 meters across. Where everything below is small and strange and hidden, the mantas are vast and effortless. They pass overhead like slow-moving weather, and then they are gone, back into the blue. In the Banggai Islands of Indonesia, a lake sits surrounded by jungle so dense it seems to fold in on itself. From above, the water is so clear that the bottom is visible from the air, logs, sand, depth, as if the surface isn't there at all. Below it, a forest, not growing, sunken. Trees that have been on the lake bed long enough to become part of it, draped in soft algae, perfectly preserved in the cold, fresh water. The visibility is total. Every log, every branch, every grain of sand on the bottom sitting in sharp focus. Diving between the great sunken trunks, scale becomes quietly apparent. In the open ocean off Dominica, something surfaces from the deep. Sperm whales are built for extremes, capable of diving 3 kilometers down, holding their breath for 90 minutes, hunting giant squid in total darkness with nothing but sound. The most powerful biological sonar on Earth, wrapped in the largest toothed head of any animal alive. And yet here they are, motionless, vertical, suspended in open blue water like vast breathing monoliths. Heads up, tails down, eyes closed. A whole pod of them, together, completely still. They are asleep. Scientists only confirmed this in 2008, a research vessel drifting into a group of them by accident, finding them unresponsive, undisturbed, standing in the water in silence. a behavior that had gone unwitnessed for the entire history of human observation of these animals. The ocean's most formidable predator, quietly at rest. From above, Palau is an archipelago of jungle islands scattered across the western Pacific. Green, dense, ringed by reef. Underneath them, the limestone has been dissolving for millions of years. What remains is a labyrinth of tunnels, caverns, and caves that runs beneath the islands and out into the open ocean floor. Inside them, light behaves differently. It enters through blue holes and tunnel mouths in long, concentrated shafts, cutting through the dark, catching particles in the water, turning the cave into something between a cathedral and a dream. Chandelier Cave holds 4 chambers, each with its own air pocket at the top. And stalactites hang from the ceiling that grew here when the cave was open to the sky, before the sea rose and sealed it forever. The ocean is not a place that rewards generosity. Most relationships here exist for one reason: survival. The clownfish and the anemone have one of the most recognized arrangements in the sea. The anemone's tentacles are venomous to almost everything, but not the clownfish, which has developed a protective coating that renders the sting harmless. In return, the clownfish drives off predators and parasites, 2 animals each making the other harder to kill. The urchin crab takes a more direct approach. It carries a sea urchin, held against its body, spines outward as a living shield. The crab gets protection, the urchin gets transport. Whether the urchin has any opinion on the matter is unclear. And then there is the emperor shrimp. Barely 2 centimeters long, it will hitch a ride on almost anything willing to move slowly enough. Nudibranch, sea cucumbers, starfish. It clings to its host and travels with it, feeding on whatever the host disturbs as it goes. In return, it cleans parasites from its host's skin. What makes it stranger still? The shrimp shifts colour to match whatever it's riding. Across a purple nudibranch, it turns purple. Across an orange sea cucumber, orange. Each pairing a different combination, each one more vivid and unlikely than the last. When 2 shrimp end up on the same host, the arrangement becomes rather less harmonious. They fight, aggressively, persistently, competing for the prime position on the host's back where the food is most abundant. Two animals engaged in a territorial dispute, on top of a third animal that is entirely indifferent to all of it. The ocean's partnerships, it turns out, are rarely straightforward. In 1986, a diver off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan's southernmost island, found something on the seafloor that had no obvious explanation. 25 meters down, flat surfaces, right angles, step platforms rising in sequence, each edge too clean, too deliberate to dismiss. It shouldn't look like this. Some say it's natural, rock fractured along straight lines shaped slowly over time. Others see something else entirely. A city. Something that stood above water once before the sea rose and swallowed it. 30 years of debate, still no consensus. This is a fish. It has gills, it lives in the ocean, and it is walking on land. The mudskipper spends more time out of the water than in it, moving across mudflats and mangrove roots on fins that have, over millions of years, learned to work like crutches. It breathes through its skin, it hunts insects, it climbs. A prolonged stay underwater can actually drown it. It has not just left the ocean, it has moved on entirely. And like any creature that has claimed new territory, it defends it. Two mudskippers face off on the mud, dorsal fins raised, launching at each other in short, aggressive bursts. A territorial dispute conducted entirely on dry land by animals that are technically fish. The seafloor at Pulauwe is cracked open. Hot gas forces its way through in constant streams, rising, billowing, surrounding the divers above. This is not a geological anomaly. This is an active underwater volcano, quietly doing what volcanoes do, in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of a dive. Some things are built for war and end up doing something far more useful. In Akaba, Jordan, a retired anti-aircraft tank, sits on the seafloor, coral already claiming its surfaces, fish threading through its barrel. A weapon quietly becoming a reef. Off the coast of Antalya, a C-47 military cargo plane rests on the seabed in remarkably intact condition. The fuselage still holds its shape. The cockpit is navigable. Divers move through the cabin past windows that once looked out over clouds, now looking out over open water. Outside, the wings stretch across the sand, encrusted, colonized, unrecognizable from the air, but unmistakably a plane from within. Both were placed here deliberately, given back to the sea, and left to whatever comes next. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for over 2,300 kilometres along the northeastern coast of Australia. It is the largest living structure on Earth, visible from space, built by organisms too small to see. It is home to an estimated 1,500 species of fish, 4,000 species of mollusk, and more variety of life than almost anywhere else in the ocean. A green sea turtle glides over the coral, unhurried. A giant clam sits open on the reef bed, its mantle an iridescent electric blue. Parrotfish move through in bursts of colour, grazing on coral and grinding it into the white sand below. A yellow trumpetfish hangs vertically in the water, motionless, hiding in plain sight among the coral branches. A potato bass, vast, slow, seemingly indifferent to everything, holds position over the reef like it owns the place. This is the Great Barrier Reef at its most serene. It is also, quietly, one of the most dangerous places to swim on Earth. The lionfish is one of the most visually striking animals on the reef. Fan-like fins, vivid stripes, an almost theatrical appearance. Those fins conceal spines loaded with venom that causes immediate, excruciating pain and swelling. It does not hide. It does not need to. The blue-ringed octopus fits in the palm of a hand. At rest, it is a muted brown. When threatened, vivid blue rings pulse across its body, one of nature's clearest warnings. Its venom is potent enough to kill a human in minutes. There is no anti-venom. And then there is the box jellyfish. Almost completely transparent, barely visible in clear water, trailing tentacles up to 3 meters long. They are responsible for more deaths in Australia than any other marine animal. Contact with a single tentacle can cause cardiac arrest within minutes. There is an anti-venom, but there is often not enough time to use it. The Great Barrier Reef is extraordinary. It is also, in several very specific ways, trying to kill you. High in the mountains of Kazakhstan, a lake sits in a narrow valley surrounded by forest. The water is still. The color is an impossible turquoise. Dozens of spruce trunks rise directly out of the water. No branches, no leaves, just bare grey spires standing in rows across the lake as if a forest has been partially submerged. Which is exactly what happened. In 1911, a landslide sealed the valley, trapped a river, and drowned an entire forest where it stood. The water came up, the trees stayed. Below the surface, the rest of them are still there. The submerged trunks stretch downward into cold, dark water, upright, pale, perfectly preserved by the cold. No current disturbs them. No light reaches the lower ones. A forest frozen in the moment it drowned, still standing more than a century later. It is one of the most unsettling things in fresh water. In Florida, the earth leaks. Thousands of natural springs push fresh water up through the sandy riverbeds and lake floors of the state. Cold, clear, and constant. In places, the sand itself cannot settle. It churns and shifts above the vent, endlessly disturbed by the pressure of water rising from below. The springs feed a network of rivers and waterways of extraordinary clarity. Visibility in some reaches 30 meters. Light filters down through the water in long shafts, illuminating white sand beds, submerged grasses, and the slow drift of whatever is down there. And in winter, what is down there is this. Manatees gather in Florida's spring systems when the ocean temperature drops, drawn to the consistent warmth of the spring water. They arrive in massive herds. They are enormous animals. An adult can reach 4 meters and weigh over 1,000 kilograms. And yet there is nothing intimidating about them. They move through the water with a gentleness that seems built into them, rolling slowly, nudging each other, mothers keeping calves close in the current. In the clear water of the springs, you can watch the whole thing. A family going about its day, completely at ease. Occasionally, a diver drifts into the middle of them. The manatees do not move away. They are, by most accounts, simply curious. One will turn toward the diver, hang in the water for a moment, and then slowly continue on. An animal with no reason to fear anything, and apparently no interest in starting now. Somewhere on the Arctic Ocean, a temporary camp appears each spring. A few tents, a runway carved into the ice, helicopters threading through the cold. Camp Barneo, a drifting ice station that exists for only a few weeks each year, roughly 100 kilometres from the geographic North Pole, before the ice shifts and swallows it. Some of the people who come here bring skis. Some bring scientific instruments. Some cut a hole through 2 meters of ice and lower themselves in. The water is minus 1.8 degrees Celsius, cold enough that a regulator can freeze mid-dive. Cold enough that exposure without equipment is measured in minutes. Below the surface, the world becomes blue. Not the warm blue of a tropical reef. A hard, pale, ancient blue. The underside of the ice stretching away in every direction. Hand signals replace words. A tap on the wrist, a raised fist, a pointed finger. Every movement deliberate, every response immediate. Then one of the divers produces a coring tool and begins to work at the ice, chipping, extracting. Inside it, tiny bubbles, pockets of air sealed away from when this ice first formed. What they are taking is not just ice. It is a piece of the air that once surrounded the Earth. The divers take their sample and begin the ascent, back through the hole, back onto the ice. In their hands, a piece of climate history that will help understand our future. Tonga is one of the only places on Earth where this is possible. Every year, humpback whales migrate to the warm waters of the South Pacific to breed and give birth. And here, unlike almost anywhere else in the world, they allow people into the water with them, not from a cage, not from a distance, in the open ocean, face to face. A humpback can reach 16 meters in length and weigh 40 tons. In open water, there is nothing to measure that against until a diver enters the frame. Then the scale becomes clear. There is nothing between the diver and the whale, just open water and an animal entirely unbothered by the small, bubbling creatures beside it. From above, Goloboya Ozero is unremarkable. A small, circular lake sitting quietly in the Russian landscape, easy to pass without a second glance. Below the surface is another matter entirely. Spring-fed and mineral-rich, the water here is of absolute clarity. Colours that should fade with depth stay vivid, the bottom appears closer than it is, and every detail is sharp and still. The plants on the lake bed have been slowly calcified by centuries of mineral deposits, frozen in place, coated in white, perfectly preserved. A world that has been building itself quietly and unseen for longer than anyone has been watching. A freediver enters. The surface closes above them, and what surrounds them is, simply, one of the most beautiful bodies of fresh water on Earth. In March 2017, a storm off the coast of Gozo collapsed one of the Mediterranean's most iconic natural arches. The Azure Window, a limestone formation that had stood for thousands of years, fell into the sea in a matter of hours. What was once a landmark above the waterline is now an underwater one. The arch lies where it fell, vast, recognizable, already being claimed by the sea. Elsewhere in Gozo's waters, the P-31 patrol vessel sits upright on the sandy floor, deliberately sunk in 2007 to create an artificial reef. Divers move across its deck, through its corridors, past the bridge, a vessel that spent its working life above the surface, now doing something more interesting below it. In French Polynesia, a narrow channel cuts through the reef at Rangiroa, connecting the lagoon to the open ocean. Twice a day, the tide pushes through it, and with it, everything that lives in these waters. The dolphins come with the current, bottlenose, fast and loose, moving through the pass as if they own it, which by most accounts they do. They have been here long enough, and unbothered enough, that the presence of divers has become something to investigate rather than avoid. They circle, they drift close, they hover in the stream of bubbles rising from a diver's regulator, turning in the current, apparently delighted by something so simple. There is no performance here, no training, no incentive beyond curiosity, just an animal that has decided of its own accord that this is worth sticking around for. But the bottlenose is not the only dolphin that has decided that humans are worth investigating. Deep in the Amazon basin, in water the color of weak tea, something pink moves through the shallows. The boto, the Amazon River dolphin, is one of the strangest looking animals in the water. Fully pink. Bulbous forehead, long narrow beak. Eyes reduced to near uselessness in the murky river water, navigating instead by sonar in the dark. And yet, curious. Remarkably, almost recklessly curious. Where most wild animals retreat from human presence, the boto moves toward it. It approaches the camera. It surfaces at the water's edge and takes food from an outstretched hand. It investigates, lingers, returns. Two dolphins, two completely different worlds, one in the crystalline current of a Pacific Pass, one in the tannin-stained shallows of the Amazon. Both of them, independently, arriving at the same conclusion about the strange air-breathing creatures they share the water with. Not far away, another Brazilian river offers something entirely different. Rio Sucuri runs so clear and so steady that snorkelers need to do almost nothing. The current just takes them. Drifting above beds of swaying river plants. Fish moving below. The riverbed passing beneath in perfect detail. Less like swimming, more like flying, carried along by water so transparent it barely seems to be there at all. The green sea turtle is a creature of the ocean. It feeds there, sleeps there, spends almost its entire life there. And yet, when it comes time to lay eggs, it hauls itself onto land. The same beach where it was born, in many cases decades earlier, digs a hole in the sand and leaves. What emerges weeks later has never even seen the water. Dozens of hatchlings push up through the sand simultaneously. Tiny, frantic, already moving. They have been alive for minutes. Their first task, with no instruction and no assistance, is to cross an open beach and reach the ocean. They move toward the light, past birds, past crabs, over sand that shifts under flippers not yet built for land. Some don't make it. Those that do hit the water are still scrambling, fighting through the first waves, getting pushed back, trying again. And then the wave pulls back and they are through. Swept into open water for the first time, swimming instinctively in a direction they have never been. Off the coast of Palawan in the Philippines, limestone towers rise from the water in jagged, dramatic formations. The kind of landscape that looks like it was designed rather than formed. Below the surface, the same formations continue. The limestone drops straight down through water so clear that the full height of each column is visible from the surface. Sharp edges, deep shadows, light cutting between them. A cathedral of rock, half above the waterline and half below, with no obvious point where one world ends and the other begins. In the sheltered waters of Mosul, Raja Ampat, a lake sits cut off from the open ocean. Isolated long enough that the jellyfish living inside it lost their sting entirely. With no predators, there was nothing left to defend against. They move with the sun, tracking the light across the lake through the day. Divers swim through them, surrounded on all sides, the jellyfish parting and closing around them without alarm. An ocean animal that has forgotten what threat feels like. After dark, the divers return with torches. The same jellyfish, the same lake, but the beams pick them out of the black one by one, illuminating each pulse, each drift. The golden clouds are gone. What's left is stranger. Fragments of light moving through absolute darkness. A lake that seems to have no edges, no surface, no bottom. Just the jellyfish and the dark and whatever direction the light happens to point. In the fjords of northern Norway in the depths of winter, the fishing boats go out. And where the fishing boats go, the orcas follow. Herring shoals gather in the cold waters around Tromsø in enormous numbers, and the orcas have learned to follow the fleet, knowing the nets will concentrate the fish. They arrive in pods, fins cutting the surface in the grey Arctic light, patient, organised, waiting. Below the surface, the hunt is something else entirely. The orcas work together, herding the herring into tight, dense balls near the surface, then stunning them with powerful tail strikes before moving in to feed. Each movement coordinated, each role understood. A hunt that has been refined over generations, passed down through family groups that stay together for life. The herring have no answer for it. What makes Tromsø remarkable is that people get in the water with them. Orcas take on great white sharks, coordinate hunts with military precision, and yet have never once attacked a human in the wild. The Mediterranean is one of the most dived bodies of water on Earth. Beneath its surface, rock formations worn into arches and columns by millennia of current. Walls dropping into deep blue, light playing through the water in long afternoon shafts. A familiar sea with an unfamiliar floor. But of everything growing on that floor, one plant deserves particular attention. Posidonia oceanica meadows sway in the current across much of the Mediterranean seabed. Unremarkable to look at, easy to swim past without a second thought. But what looks like a meadow of individual plants is, in many cases, a single organism. Posidonia spreads not by seed, but by sending out underground stems that sprout new shoots, each one genetically identical, each one still connected to the original. One plant endlessly copying itself outward across the sea floor. The oldest known Posidonia meadow off the Balearic Islands has been doing this for over 100,000 years. The same individual plant, still alive, still growing, older than agriculture, older than written language, older than any animal currently living on Earth. The Galapagos Islands sit at the meeting point of several major ocean currents. Cold, nutrient-rich water colliding with the warm Pacific, creating conditions that draw life from every direction. Below the surface, the result is unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. Hammerhead sharks gather here in numbers that beggar belief. Hundreds of them, schooling in slow rotating masses in the blue water. Eagle rays glide past in formation, wingtips nearly touching, unhurried and vast. The mola mola, the ocean sunfish, the heaviest bony fish on Earth, drifts by like a swimming wall, seemingly indifferent to everything around it. And then there are the sea lions. Where everything else moves with purpose or grace, The sea lions move for the sheer joy of it, rocketing past divers, doubling back, spiraling upward, and cutting away at the last moment. It is, by any measure, an underwater paradise. The reef rewards patience. Look past the obvious, past the sharks and the schools and the things that announce themselves, and slow down. What appears to be a piece of drifting seaweed is not seaweed. It sways with the current and has the same colour and texture as everything around it. But it has eyes. The leafy sea dragon, a relative of the seahorse, has evolved a disguise so complete that it is essentially invisible in open water. It does not hide behind the kelp, it becomes it. On the coral, small spiral shapes protrude from the surface in vivid whirls of colour. They look decorative, planted almost. The Christmas tree worm has built a tube inside the coral and extends two feathery crowns into the water to filter feed. And smaller still, the Costiciella sea slug. A few millimeters long, it clings to the algae it feeds on, its body studded with translucent serrata that catch the light in greens and blues. It looks less like an animal and more like a cartoon. A creature so small and so strange that most divers swim past without ever knowing it exists. In the central Pacific Ocean, a lagoon sits ringed by a coral reef, its surface calm and turquoise. From above, it looks like paradise. In February 1944, it was anything but. Chuuk Lagoon, then known as Truk, was the empire of Japan's most formidable naval base in the Pacific. 5 airstrips, hundreds of aircraft, thousands of troops, and a significant portion of the Imperial Japanese fleet anchored within its natural harbour. The Americans called it the Gibraltar of the Pacific. Taking it seemed almost impossible. They didn't try to take it, they tried to destroy it. On the 17th of February 1944, Operation Hailstone began. Over 500 American aircraft launched from carrier task forces and attacked the lagoon for 48 hours straight. Over 50 ships and 250 aircraft were sent to the bottom. More than 4,500 Japanese lives were lost. By the time the smoke cleared, the most powerful naval base in the Pacific had ceased to exist. The wrecks stayed where they fell, for decades, largely undisturbed, settling into the silt, coral slowly claiming the hulls, fish moving through the corridors. Today, divers descend through that same calm turquoise water and find them still there. Cargo holds full of tanks, ammunition, gas masks, personal belongings, aircraft lying on the sand, engines torn loose, cockpits open to the current. The largest collection of World War II wrecks in the world, preserved in the silt of a lagoon that has kept them almost exactly as they were left. Every year, off the eastern coast of South Africa, millions of sardines move north in a dense, writhing mass along the coastline. And everything that can eat them follows. The bait balls form when predators herd the sardines into tight spheres near the surface. A frantic, compressed chaos of fish with nowhere left to go. Seals dart through the middle. Marlin cut through with brutal precision, stunning fish with their bills before turning to feed. Dolphins work the edges in coordinated passes. From above, gannets spot them and fold into the water like arrows, hitting the surface at full speed. The water is alive in every direction, a feeding event so vast and so concentrated that it has been called the greatest natural spectacle in the ocean. And then something changes. The water goes quiet. The ocean's most iconic predator, the great white shark, and the only one whose arrival empties the water around it. From inside a cage, at eye level, the power of the animal is not frightening. It is simply undeniable. A creature perfectly built for a single purpose in the environment it was built for. There is truly nothing else quite like it in the ocean. And if the underwater world surprised you, you won't believe what's hiding above the surface. Click now to discover the wonders of the world that most people have never even heard of.